Hey, Revenue Radio. This is a day I've been waiting for a year and a half. Okay. I'm Mary Grothy, for those of you who don't know me or can't recognize my voice if you're not watching the video. And today I'm joined by she calls herself this too, but my right hand. So this this is my right hand,
Yes.
Sabrina. I just held it in front of her face. Another reason why y'all need to start watching the YouTube videos and not just listening on your favorite podcast channel if you want to see this amazing studio. But our CMO, Sabrina Ott, is with us today. She is usually the one running these podcasts and sitting back behind the screen with her headphones on. I made her come out onto the other side because we have a topic that we're excited to talk about. Both of us are enrolled in the Pavilion schools. I'm in CRO school,
And
Sabrina's in CMO school.
yes.
Some interesting topics have come up recently about the CRO CMO relationship. And I thought about bringing it on the show, and then I said, great, and you're going to do it with me.
It wasn't really she said you're going to do it with me. She just put it on my calendar and I knew that what that meant.
Oh, yeah. I don't even think I told you. Whoops. Yeah. You're used to working with me from this point. So Sabrina joined us in May of 2021. I'm so bad with years. And immediately stepped in and took control of our brand. It had been built really well to that point. I was super used to it. I absolutely loved the marketer that we had in that position before. I'd worked with her for years. And Sabrina came in, just a fresh set of eyes and perspective. And the Swiss Army marketer background just said, like, I have so many ideas. And it took us a couple of months to figure out the the working relationship and dynamic and communication. And then ever since then, I was like, here, take it. Take it, run with it. And everything you know of House of Revenue and our other brands, the Mary Grothy brand, the Do Remarkable Work. I mean, everything that Sabrina touches has just turned into gold. She also is my fractional counterpart on the investment we both made this year in a little tech company called Spots. And so I think we are qualified to have this conversation today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So you were sitting in on CMO school the other day, and you were sharing some insights with me. So we came up with some talking points for today. So let's dig in on the CMO CRO role. And one of the first talking points was about habitual avoidance. So tell me what you are imagining with habitual avoidance. Why are the CRO and CMO avoiding each other?
So I think it can be quite a bit of things, but it has to really come down to they don't understand each other's roles and then they're afraid of being found out. Because when you get to the C suite, not everyone has all the answers. We are all learning on the fly, and you just feel like you're not going to live up to their expectations.
And it is hard because both the CRO and CMO are high turnover roles.
Mhm.
The CRO is 17 months, is the stat right now. Do you know what CMO is by
It's
chance?
about 18 months,
Oh my gosh.
just dropped from 19.
So, I mean, this is the battle. You have two people very passionate about revenue, and the CRO, in theory, should be very holistic. They themselves should understand brand strategy, go to market strategy, marketing, sales, CS, revenue operations. Unfortunately, that's very few CROs that are out there. Typical CRO is a glorified sales leader. Then you have the CMO. What is a CMO? Typically, their expertise, their lineup.
They have done multiple areas of marketing, and it's really that marketing strategy brand background.
I agree. And I think it's like a love and a passion for constant research and competitive
Yes.
analysis because the marketer, in my opinion, at that chief marketing level, should have such a great pulse and handle on what is happening in the market. You know, I actually saw a post on LinkedIn. They were thinking about changing CMO from chief marketing officer to chief market officer.
I saw that too.
Maybe I saw it because you liked it, and so it put it in my newsfeed, which is how I see
Probably.
like half of Sabrina Ott liked this. I'm like, then I'm gonna like it too. And LinkedIn knows.
I actually do the same thing. She'll like something and then I'll follow up and like it. So
That's great. We've been working together for a long time. So, a chief marketing officer, they have a lot of weight, but there's also this habitual avoidance. There's been a feud and an argument between the CRO and CMO for a long time. Some of the things I know exist, chief revenue officers or, even in that head of sales position, they feel like the bigger targets on their back, they're going to get fired first. versus anybody that's in charge of brand top of funnel awareness, marketing throughout the 360 flywheel, et cetera. So I know that's an area of frustration. Where is a CMO frustrated about a CRO?
I would state it's that alignment on metrics because as marketing is progressing in the field, it's becoming more data aware. And if you don't have metrics that align to your pipeline, to your funnel, and they constantly change, everyone's going to be arguing all the time.
Yeah, so most marketers aren't data driven. How critical is it at the C level for a marketer to be data driven?
It is absolutely critical because once you get to the C level, you're looking at how everything impacts the company as a whole, your team members as a whole, because your team members are at that point not your department, it's your peers in the leadership team. So it's how do you support them to help everyone be successful?
Yeah, the funnel can cause some strife. And I think what you're saying with the data is the two people in the seats, the CRO, CMO, we need to agree on the same funnel. And that I know for House of Revenue, we talk about data a lot. And you're always, okay, this is the cool thing about Sabrina. And I think in this relationship with the CMO, CRO, if your CMO or if you are a CMO is not presenting data weekly, monthly, quarterly, and owning it when numbers change or there's variance, that's a problem. Sabrina comes to me all the time. Well, one, she's conditioned me to read the dashboards that she built that auto email me every week, has explained what the metrics are, why they're important, why they're in the dashboard, why I need to keep my eye on it. But as a marketer, she's not just looking at top of funnel, she's actually gauging the quality of every single lead and its conversion rate throughout the funnel based on the lead source. And so she's being able to come to me and report and say, hey, have you noticed? Did you see that? Hey, I was looking at this report. Okay, great. Because wouldn't it be brilliant if a marketer could understand the traffic sources that have the highest conversion, the shortest time to close, and the highest average revenue per sale? And then on their own accord, because they're data driven or data informed and managing the funnel alongside the CRO, then they can optimize their marketing campaigns and tactics because they know what converts. And they didn't have to wait for the CRO to say anything.
Exactly. It's so important for marketing to not only be reactive, but be proactive. Why is a lead source not converting? Is it because they don't have the correct materials, the enablement to actually help them close? And what can we do to help that along further?
Yes. And I think there's always been this argument that marketing needs to get out in the field with salespeople.
Hmm.
They need to hear frontline what those prospective client conversations are. We have a feedback loop here with how prospects engage in our messaging. In fact, today, two times in 1 week, we had two CEO prospects say, I read every page of your website and it's as if I had written it myself or that you were speaking exactly to me. How does that come about? How does a head of marketing who's in charge of messaging from brand awareness through every stage of the funnel into client marketing, how does that get achieved?
So it would get achieved. Primarily, how I achieved it is I got in the mind of our CEOs. I followed everywhere that they were. So, primarily interacting on LinkedIn for this ICP, so ideal customer profile, and really become like ingrained in their lives. And what's great is that with Mary, she's the CEO of House of Revenue, and really getting to know her has allowed me to speak more to these CEOs.
Yeah, that's great, and that's probably a little scary. But maybe that's why CEOs are a little crazy, but maybe that's why it's resonating with them, and I didn't even think about that. You're taking the day-to-day experiences and translating into it, which is imperative. Let me go to the next item on our list. So, you have a bullet point on here that says, "Let's be partners." I have yelled from the rooftops about the CRO CMO relationship, especially as I call you my right hand. You are in my ear on things that I need to know and giving me an option of whether I do something about it or not. So the leading indicators, the trends are critical. But you're on a client right now, so I'm actually able to watch Sabrina inside of a Slack channel and the way that she's analyzing the market, always ahead of trends and being proactive and informing the CRO of potential pivots and shifts and things we need to be aware of. So talk to me about that's my perception of the CRO CMO partner. Where do you see a CRO being a good partner to you as a CMO?
So I see the CRO being my partner in the sense that they have the pulse on what sales is doing and what they're about to try. And then I'm able to come in and say, actually, if our market's going to be enterprise clients, we need to address them in a different way, a different tone of voice, a different writing strategy, content strategy, everything that can actually convert the client or customer to a client and be their partner and realizing that nothing is ever a silly idea. There just might be a better way to go about it.
Yeah, the CRO CMO partnership, I think sometimes like we opened up about the avoidance factor. There's
Yeah.
also a fear factor of I don't want to be found out. I don't want them to think I'm a weak partner or I'm not pulling my weight. And so unfortunately, a lot of that can seep in too, and then it can hinder the quality of performance, quality of work. But I also, I'm working on an engagement right now just on the side for fun because I don't have enough to do with my time. And a marketing campaign was suggested. And so they're like, "Hey, I've stepped in interim, very short term as a CRO while they have a gap." And they're like, "Hey, we're going to launch this marketing campaign." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Hold on. It's an email campaign." I'm like, "When does this go out? Who's the audience? What is it about? What is it for? And how is it? How are you as head of marketing? Like, how are you anticipating that this is supposed to turn into leads? Because I'm responsible for conversion. So you're doing this huge top of funnel campaign. I have no time to proof it, read it, figure out like what the strategy is behind this, but that's okay because I'm high urgency. I can figure it out. But I'm like, before this launches, why are we should never be sending a marketing campaign unless we know the expected outcome because marketing should make you money. And I think that that is the
Mhm.
partnership between the CMO and the CRO. No campaign should ever go out, no email, no
Yeah.
newsletter, no webinar, no trade show sign up, no nothing for marketing should ever go out unless in partnership with the CRO, the conversation is had is what are we trying to achieve by doing this? And what is the pre and post strategy? And then how do we evaluate the performance of it to determine if we should be doing this again?
Exactly. And an even more important point is how can we support everyone knowing the same message and being able to talk about it? We should let the sales team know every time marketing puts something out, like a campaign. And then knowing that, like, how is it going to impact the customers along with their sales relationships? Like, if they're going to a store and talking about a recent campaign that came out and you're giving away an item for free, well, what if that store doesn't have that item in stock?
Yeah, not good.
That's not good at all. And now the customer's disappointed. You made a terrible first impression if that's their first time visiting, and you don't seem in alignment. It seems like the company doesn't chat with each other.
But even think about so take that strategy to the next where people aren't chatting with each other, there's no alignment, and it feels like a wasted effort. What about a webinar? Like, do you just expect that your content is so good that a bunch of people are going to proactively reach out and be like, I'd like to learn more about your services and sign up? Most webinars are educational, they're not sales pitches. So they don't really have that it's strong, like people weren't signing up for the pitch. So there needs to be pre work done and then there needs to be work done on the back end. And that's another example of partnership with marketing and sales. I know we had a CEO workshop here at the office, what, last year sometime. And we had the
Yeah.
attendee list ahead of time so we looked it up and profiled everybody. We made
Yeah.
sure we were connected with them. We looked in our database if we had past conversations, relationships with them. Like we knew who they were. And so that way, when they came into the office, like I had my list created of who.
Mhm.
And so rather than just being like, hi, I'm Mary, like, who are you? No, like we knew the names, we knew their companies, we knew the size of company, the industry, where they were located, the revenue. You can find out so much on the internet. And so I was already putting together, like, I think this is what it is. And then we had a dual strategy effort while we were in person. We also had embedded calls to action inside of the presentation that were not salesy. And then we built an automation on the back end of those, like our resource guide and whatever else. And then after the event, we had it all laid out to have strategic conversations. We had a call to action and that kind of that freebie offering and extending it from there. But if we just hosted a webinar or a workshop and had people come in the door and then there's no strategy before and after. So again, marketing could be like, hey, let's host an event or a webinar on this. Okay. Like,
Where's this? Like, how are we going to follow up with them?
well, how does it turn into anything? Where do we get
Yeah.
ROI on this? That's actually really funny because this was a lesson learned back when I was selling payroll. My second time around, I noticed it was a little bit more difficult to get people to meet. So from 2006 to 2010, telemarketing was still great. Like back, people picked up the phones. It was awesome. Email wasn't spammy, and there weren't automation tools. At least my company didn't have them. So every email I sent was by hand and custom. And so they were high value and personalized and great reply rates, way easier to get meetings. I went back in 2014. I'm like, oh God, my connect rate is like really, really bad. And I'm not getting meetings. I have to get creative. So I started to hold events, but I didn't have the marketing wherewithal and I did not have any marketing support. And so it was like one salesperson trying to be brave. I had zero conversion from those events because there was just no strategy behind it. So I'm like, great, now I did a whole bunch of work and I got people out of the office, but there was no strategy. There was no follow through. There was no pre-call plating. Like it didn't turn anything. And I think that partnership is absolutely critical. What about social media? What can a company and a brand do from a company account in social media where it falls flat versus if the entire sales team is embracing in a social media strategy?
So there's definitely a trending topic right now called dark social, and a lot of companies do not want to put in an effort on the social media front if they cannot attribute it to closed revenue. And one of the great things that we do here, that we do with all of our clients, is we have a deal lead source, and that is the source from the actual client. How did they hear about us? Because that's where I, as a marketer, want to hone in on and do more outreach, more thought leadership, and getting everyone on the same page, like even training them on how to properly use LinkedIn. So as a marketer, I can even go out there, I can recommend the services of a client of our services, tag them, tag their company page, and then maybe 30 minutes, 15 minutes later replies the company. And it looks like the company is, that customer service focused customer experience. And it's not just a look, it is the entire ecosystem of client relationships and, just that client communication throughout the entire funnel. So it's really like you can be both. Like you can act as a salesperson and a marketer and embrace each other's tactics.
Well, I feel like we have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the strategies are siloed, the execution is siloed, they don't match. Like if the company brand is just posting content, but not replying and not engaging, and then proactively reaching out and commenting on other brands or individuals, it's a huge mess. And so often when you look at, hey, this is the marketing strategy for social, this is our social media playbook. We post to LinkedIn 2 times a week. We then take that post and we change the hashtags and we post it on Facebook. And then we do a tweet, but because it has a character limitation, what we do is we take the copy from LinkedIn and then we trim it down and we post the exact same content just in shorter form on Twitter. It's like, oh my gosh, guys, that social media strategy is so like 2015. Social media today is all about engagement, and the marketing team and the sales team should be perfectly blended in that effort, and the customer success team and account managers, because they own relationships with those people. The brand, the company should be commenting on their clients' posts and with their executives. What if your brand was engaging with the executives of your clients? Doesn't that look like you care and you're invested and it's a great strategy and people see that? So this is yet another example, a good traditional marketing tactic without pulling in the CRO, without working in partnership. It's just check the box marketing, and it's posting for the sake of posting, which is why a lot of the alignment between CROs and CMOs fall flat. What else is on our list to discuss? Okay, silent contempt. Don't understand the challenges of other roles. Don't understand the why behind other role decisions. Oh, so you mean decisions are sometimes made and the other person doesn't agree with it, and take the time to understand? Do you have an example of this?
Silent contempt in the world of sales and marketing is not so silent most of the time. You have MQLs that don't convert to SQLs, so marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads, and all of a sudden marketing's in hot water, and then marketing replies and says, hey, we sent you all of these leads and they were qualified for you to reach out to them after a certain amount of time with lead scoring. And that just creates that silent contempt. When you don't understand what the other department is doing, you cannot edit things to make them work better. So for example, In marketing, if the MQLs are not converting, how can we make our messaging more targeted to the customer we're targeting? So, how can we speak their language? And from there, how can we enable sales to close those deals? So, it's the before and after that they're qualified as an MQL.
Well, the feedback loop is critical, and I
Hmm.
think that there is a point of contention between the CRO and CMO when there's a lack of communication and alignment on the metrics. There's effort done on the marketing side. I love LinkedIn, by the way, because you will see people be very vocal about should every aspect of marketing drive revenue, or can some of it just be for awareness that potentially pays dividends down the road, but doesn't have an exact correlation to revenue today. Like not everything in marketing is campaign driven and can be traced back. So there are different pieces, but in all, when you do look at I think that's also a differentiation between a brand strategy and like more top of funnel, like very high pre before falling into the funnel awareness
Hmm.
tactics through the brand. But then also, when you look at where marketing strategy then would come in is what do we do once we have them attracted into the funnel? So when we look at the misalignment between the two and where that causes the friction is marketing is constantly held to being quantified and producing results and producing revenue. But I don't think all marketing departments, one, have experience being data driven marketers, understanding how their efforts turn into dollars. And then the CRO in some organizations, marketing rolls up underneath. They're responsible for that number and making sure they have the funnel pipeline conversion metrics. And so it can create a lot of stress and strife and frustration when the two are not aligned or there isn't the clear communication going between the two of them.
Exactly. And I would even suggest having your marketing team, if it is an enormous, like enterprise level team, even having your marketing director and up in your sales meetings, just so that they can hear from the salespeople's mouths once a week. What are your customers saying? What are their pain points? And then you're able to take that information and create materials, create messaging around that that helps drive more qualified leads.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm gonna switch gears here as we start wrapping up and coming to a close. I used to be really anti CMO. In fact, I thought a CRO was all that a company needed. In fact, the messaging on our website used to be very anti
You don't need
CMO.
a CMO. You need a chief revenue officer team.
That's exactly right. And it wasn't until you fully stepped in to a CMO role that I understood and experienced the value. And in fact, now that I've been able to experience it, so it started with our investment earlier this year with spots, but then the way that you elevated, we had some changeover in staff. And so when you fully stepped into the right hand position, thank you for helping me every day. And fully stepped into that, did I realize the value in what this is? So just as there's a lot of phony revenue leaders out there. They can tell a good story. They may have a really cool success story on their resume because they were at the right company at the right time with the right product and some tailwinds. But like anybody, honestly, in that role would have been successful with that story. But then there's the people who have fought through like the ups, the downs, the failures, the successes, have been in the trenches, have had a couple failed launches. Like all of those make us so much stronger and smarter. But it wasn't until I had Sabrina in this right hand position demonstrating what an actual data driven chief marketing officer can do, where I'm like, we're missing the mark. We're missing the mark on what we're offering right now. And we didn't have any CMOs employed at House of Revenue. And I'm like, wait a second. This is what we're missing because what Sabrina and I have been able to do at House of Revenue specifically in this pairing, I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to recreate this. And so it has been such a joy to be able to have this born from data, from experience, from what we've had firsthand. And now we've got this relationship example that others get to follow. So Sabrina's an anomaly and I get it. And she's getting to work on a client right now because we had an empty seat on our team. And so she's demonstrating for the CRO she's working with, someone else on our team, what this partnership looks like. And I don't think he's ever
No.
experienced a CRO CMO pairing. No. So what I mean by this is like I'm sorry for the period of time when I was very anti CMO. But the thing is, it's because I had never met like a really like brilliant in the weeds working with me day to day. I want to be careful with what I say. Earlier in our history, we had two fractional CMOs that worked with us and they were brilliant. But I thought of them as very expensive and I could only ever get them contract part-time because they're both so brilliant. They work fractionally and they make a lot of money charging, which they should, charging a lot per hour. And I felt like it was untouchable for us and the size that we were and everything else. And so I just had this in my mind, like they're the gold standard. It's either them and I'll never be able to afford them. And they don't even want a full-time job anyway. Or it's these run of the mill CMOs that had good success with a big name company, whether they really did anything or not, that company was going to be successful. Like I never had it until we had you in the seat. And now like I feel like this whole rebirth of our model, it's like, let's go.
Exactly. And it's all about that partnership and trust. It's for me, I can thank my success really to Mary. She taught me sales. She allowed me to jump in on engagements and be a part of the sales team. And I realized throughout my history, I was fortunate to actually sit in on sales meetings at other companies because I didn't realize that's what so many companies didn't do. And now I know the story behind where they're coming from, what's driving their urgency. And with that stated, it's without Mary's mentorship, I would have never, and without the right technology. So, attribution software, we use HubSpot here, and realizing my value as a marketer changed my life.
Oh.
And it allowed me to see what is actually working so that we could focus on that.
Yeah, that's really special. The sentence of what changed your life is seeing the value. And I think that that's actually very difficult for a lot of marketers. And I am very grateful for HubSpot that can show us. And I actually just spoke at Inbound and Sabrina helped me prepare the case study slide for House of Revenue. And to see the millions that have been driven, because I don't do outbound prospecting here.
We don't.
Millions that have been driven in qualified pipeline through marketing, I think was mind blowing for both of us when we saw it.
Exactly, because at House of Revenue, we qualify individuals, companies, when we send them a contract. If they get a contract in their inbox, that means they're fully qualified to sign on as a House of Revenue client. That stated, last year or this year, by the end of this year, we're set to drive about 10 million in qualified SQLs, sales qualified leads. And to date, our closed revenue percentage for inbound marketing is 73%. And above 70 is a great marketing team, according to stats I've read.
So above 70 is unbelievable. But really what it's helping us do is now be pickier on who we bring on. And that's just the truth of it is when you have a great marketer pairing with the CRO and the two are able to build a funnel like this, then your company has choice in who you bring on as a client. So from CEO to CEO, for those of you that are in that executive position, we've all had clients that were like, wish we didn't have them as a client. They were super difficult. They drained margins, like nothing you could do can please this person. And we've all had that. And it's a blessing that we are not with our, backs against the wall, like, oh my gosh, we need revenue. Because we've been there a couple of times in our business where it's like, just sign anyone who's willing. And this is so beautiful because on paper, are they qualified? Absolutely. We're very specific on who we serve, the stage they're in, the revenue size, their industry, and a couple other factors. But there's also a piece that's very hard to qualify, which are the psychographics of the person that you're going to be working with. So the lifestyle characteristics, their ego, their
emotional intelligence.
Thank you. Their EQ. If they're collaborative, team player, if they can take coaching, or if they're just super pig-headed and stubborn and hard to deal with. So a lot of those things, like, you look at the qualified pipeline is tremendous, but now we're in a position because of the beautiful pipeline we have, we're in a position where we can be really picky and choosing the projects. And that comes from having a very full pipeline of qualified opportunities, which in turn, if we have the opportunity then to make a decision on who we bring on board, then we bring on only good clients with good projects. Then the employees are happy, the clients are happy, everybody's winning. And it's a very puppies and sunshine happy day, which is like my whole life and what I strive for. So it is definitely a beautiful marriage with it. So we've got a wrap, and I'm gonna share some of my encouragement. I want to hear yours, but for those of you who haven't yet had that CMO in the seat, like they exist, they are out there. They're data driven, they're brilliant, they hustle, they love revenue, they understand conversion, they want to work in partnership, they stand firm in their recommendations, they're not a pushover. They do like the creative side of marketing and more of that like ultra top of funnel into awareness, but they also love tracking that through to conversion and getting it also into the hands of customers and customer marketing and working toward adoption and retention and expansion and advocacy, which is a lot we didn't even talk about today. However, they're out there, they exist. Be patient and find the market, because I absolutely think the pair of the CRO and the CMO, I think it's going to change revenue engines. What do you say?
I absolutely agree. And I would add to that is you might have someone already on your team that just hasn't had the opportunity to get there yet. And when you have the right marketing attribution software, you're asking your sales team to ask their prospects, how did you hear about us in every single conversation? That marketer on your team can then step up into that role because they'll be able to make those decisions. And also allowing them to continue their education. You know, I'm in the CMO school with Pavilion right now, and it's just amazing to see all of these different perspectives and all of these different, the ways people communicate, the way they project manage, the way they go pitch investors, and getting that opportunity to learn from people in your own industry, let alone peers and others. So like we'll have CROs in CMO school, and they're there to learn about marketing to better be a support to their counterparts and vice versa. I know this spring I probably want to do CRO school.
Good, because I'm going to do CMO school.
There we go. Exactly. And then I can know more, like better how to support the CRO in this role.
Oh my gosh, that's the amazing thing about you. It's like all revenue leaders should cross train.
Hmm.
I do see this incredible blend of the CRO CMO. I hope that today's episode was encouraging for you and gave you a little bit more of a glimpse into what this relationship can look like in your organization.